Hello Internet, Brad here. If you don't recognize this big red robot, then this video might not be for you, or maybe you're just interested in seeing some things that I've 3D modeled over the years. But if you do recognize it, you'll know that this big red robot's name is Dai-X, and it was a member of a 1980 or 1980s, depending on where you might have seen this, Japanese television show. It was localized in French, localized in English, UK English, then ported overseas to the United States. Originally known as X-Bomber, or Starfleet, or Bomber X, depending on where you might have seen it. But this was one of the show's kind of highlight spaceship robot creature things that the good guys climb into. There's three components. There's the head part, there's the body part, and there's the legs parts. I have actually some other videos I've made over the years of this 3D model, or some earlier iterations of it at least, where I've shown off the center body part here. I've also shown off, whoops, sorry about that. I've also shown off the leg parts in another video, but I never got around to showing off the head part of this model. So that's what we'll be doing here today. Let me turn off the views of the body and the legs and just focus on this kind of head unit for a while. This was known as BrainCom, or was it known as something else? Might have just been known as BrainCom. The midsection and the legs parts both had different names based on different localizations. But regardless, since people seem to be interested in maybe using my own model as a reference for your own modeling, you're absolutely welcome to. Of course, this is my interpretation. I have taken several creative liberties with this particular design. The show doesn't do a good job of being consistent in all of the scaled models, from the teeny tiny to the full-size models that are used during the recordings. So I've tried to kind of, in my imagination, model what I consider to be the idealized version of this spaceship robot thing. So anyhow, I'll make sure I'm not in perspective mode. Yeah, okay, so here's an orthographic view. If you want to take a screenshot, you're welcome to. Here's the front, and I believe here is a side view. Let me zoom in a little closer on that. Here is the, whoops, here is the rear side of it. Here is the top. The two sides are symmetrical, so they're more or less identical. Not more or less, actually identical, what am I saying? And of course the bottom side here, oops, here, the bottom side is, surprise, basically just a glorified flashlight. So what can we say about this that's kind of interesting, or that I might have maybe used some of those creative liberties based on things I couldn't quite see on the show, or maybe some things that are maybe not obvious at first glance. Let me start by taking this guy here. So this is kind of the outer shell of it, right? I've set some constraints here that don't always work. Hopefully they'll work for the sake of this demonstration. But I can slide this out to about here, right? When it goes into fly out mode, when it separates from the body, that moves that way, and this part moves, I think, this way. Yeah, I have another little constraint set on that to put it in solo flyby mode, where it can fly around and shoot bad guys. It's even got this little skiff sort of sled thing at the bottom where it can maybe land on a planet or an asteroid or whatever. What are some interesting notes about it once it's separated? Well, you can see that the cross, or the X on the front here, is split down the middle, and it's just barely affixed to the shell itself. So when the shell separates, the X comes along with it. As far as I could tell, the X is not mounted anywhere else. It's just barely touching the shell itself and comes along with it. Also on the shell, you see on the sides, there's these kind of three outward jutting parts. If I slide back in, you can see a little more clearly there, right? They normally look like they're lined up, but as I slide this out, you can see that the two on the bottom, the middle and the lower, are mounted to the kind of inner core of the spaceship, whereas the top one is mounted to the shell itself, and the top one's one that has this little laser gun thing on it, right? Let's see, what else might be interesting to say about this. Oh yes, the cockpit part here, which I was kind of sliding back and forth, right there, yep. At its base position, it's the nose, and the bridge of nose, of course, of the kind of robot face. But as it slides out, that's about as far as it goes. You can see that it actually rides along the kind of T-railing here, where it is slid about thus far into it, and it slides a little bit out, just peeks just a little bit out of the core parts of the spaceship there. What else might be interesting to call out? Probably not a whole lot. That's kind of all there is to it. It's a kind of samurai looking big red robot spaceship turned kind of solo flying ship. Got these kind of rockets on the back. Oh, I don't know if I said this or not, but if I look at the side profile, you can see it's not completely flat along. The backside actually dips down just marginally, just enough to give these little rockets on the back a little space where they duck out below the front profile, the front view rather, of the head shape. Also, there's also the kind of rectangular cutout here, which was for blocking in this kind of sled skiff thing. Which the exact shape of that I kind of took some creative liberties as well with, because you can never quite get a good clear view inside. I'm pretty sure there are two kind of pylons it's mounted on, but that's the best I could tell. If I hide the shell and hide the slidey bit, this is what I presume to be the inner core of it. If I look at it top down, it's a cylinder that basically I've cut arcs out of. And that's all there is to it. Just a cylinder with some arcs cut out. You can see a core cylinder here. You never really get a good view of the true interior of it, so this is all kind of made up. These kind of ports right here are, best I can tell, not actually part of it. It's implied that there's something in here that the shell kind of rides along here. So you can see I've got this kind of railing, another little pile on it when I take the shell and I slide it. Oh, not that way. Goodness. If I slide it in and out, yeah, this is not a terribly good view. Can I get any closer? There we go. You can kind of, oh, goodness. You can kind of see here that, yeah, you can see I have it riding along this rail here to give it some realism. Like, I've set constraints, so if I want to make a nice 3D render of this, everything would be where you would expect it to be and more or less functionally appropriate and working as it would. Anyhow, that is basically it for this piece of the 3D model. Yeah, I hope this has been useful for some of you out there who might be longtime Starfleet Bomber X fans. If you end up making something like this of your own, whether it's a physical model or your own kind of 3D recreation, I'd love to see it. Please drop me a link in the old YouTube comments or something. I'm not exactly a YouTube star, but I do love to see when other people have made things, especially if they've been inspired by something that I made myself. So I guess let's end this by sliding this back into its, no, not that way, its standard operating position. There we go. There's that. Everything is snapped back in. And let's turn the rest of the body on so we can see the whole thing. And you know what? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I even did a couple of quick renders. Yeah, here we go. So here is a render of kind of like the flashlight with the kind of parabolic metallic interior and little thin lens cap over it, which I guess I could also look at that here if I turn these guys back off. My machine in which I'm recording this is the same machine that I'm going to render on, so it's probably going to chug a little bit here. Yeah, it's a little slow. And being a flashlight with a true parabola, which is what the internal of a flashlight actually has, it is accordingly bright. I guess I could tune that down, but I'm not going to for the sake of this video. You can see that it's a flashlight, and there is like a very thin lens cap that I've rendered over it. Yeah. So anyway, I didn't mean to get distracted with more renders. Let me go back. Let me show you the two renders that I did do before. There is one kind of zoomed in from the back side. Some nice kind of rim lighting down here, some ring lighting. If I go, and I think I had a second one I rendered. Yeah, same idea, just from the opposite side, showing it kind of expanded out in solo flying mode. Anyway, like I said, hope this was useful. That's my ramble for today. Bye, everybody.